Hello, are you ready for a fourth line day? We are in gate 12, the gate of caution and standstill. And here we find line 4, the prophet. Ra says that the prophet represents the primary capacity to be able to articulate in words. It's our ability to communicate to each other in language. And it's where the mutation took place in the fourth line, some 80 to 90,000 years ago. At the same time, we live in a binary, and so this is where we find muteness, we find stutters, we find lisps, people who find it very difficult to speak. All of that is rooted in this mutative line, where we began our ability to be able to articulate at all, this line of the prophet. The lifetime learning is the ability to foresee and plan for the end of standstill. So this is talking about the ability to see the right moment to let go of caution, to enter into the emotional field at the right moment and in the right mood to be able to deal with the emotional field so that the mutation can take place, so that grace can be found. This line has the capacity to know exactly when the mood is right and to know exactly when they have the capacity to explain themselves. After all, what good is a prophet who can't explain themselves? In the exaltation, we have the rousing of the stagnant for communal preparation, the ability to foresee and express the need for social interaction and an end to caution. It's time to get the word out. It is time to get this mutation going, because without the emotional energy, it's not going to happen. That's what this exaltation is saying to us. The detriment says the voice in the wilderness, the expressed need for social interaction that falls on deaf ears. This is the voice that nobody hears, or the voice that cannot come out at all, or isn't heard when it does. Ra says that if you have somebody in your life who has the 12-4 in the detriment and they stutter, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. He says it's the only reason that people stutter is through fear. They're afraid of strangers. With people they know well and have known the longest, generally their speech will be different. And this is an expression of the deep fear that individuality holds, especially when it's being expressed by the emotional system. It's around the difficulty that the individual has and the fear of being singled out by the collective or the tribe for their difference. A being with the fourth line in individuality, this is all about timing and it's about opportunity. Prophets show up exactly at the right time when people are ready to hear their words of wisdom. Otherwise, it's not going to work. This is about being totally fixed on that moment, waiting for that moment to be able to externalize one's explanation, one's mutation, and to try to bring about some kind of social transformation. The 12th hexagram is very important for us in terms of the mutation that is coming as the global cycle changes in 2027. Each of the lines of the 12th hexagram represent a stage in our evolutionary process. In terms of the lines of the background frequency, we're in a first line stage at the moment. We move into the 6th line when the cycle changes, because the global program goes the other way to our planetary program. It goes clockwise. The mutation that comes through the 12-6 is ultimately the mutation that we'll be able to express and we'll be able to explain. And it's all about emotional awareness. The emotional awareness will evolve out of the 55 line 6. It evolves from there, and the stream of emoting brings it across the solar plexus into the 22, where the correct timing for the mutation to be released is controlled. And then it moves up the channel to the 12, where the mutation is finally expressed into the collective. But it's not until we get to the fourth line stage that we actually begin to communicate. There's not really even a hint of it until that point. Interesting how much silence there is in this gate of articulation. The 11, line 4, is called the teacher. The fourth line of the teacher here is the grounding gate of 11 is very special. You know, it's upper trigram now. So we have the inherent skills to be social in a social structure. The 11-4 is, of course, exactly opposite to the 12-4. And the 12-4 is where the mutation took place in our larynx that opened up our capacity to be able to communicate, to be able to teach each other. And in the 11-4, it represented the mutation of the mind. You know, that is, the mind became dominant at the expense of some of our other senses, you know, the nose, for example. And the ability that we had to codify the visuals of the mind, we became able to translate that into language. The prophet, the teacher, they both benefit from and support each other. So the moon is still in gate 57 and staying in the splenic center today, moving into gate 32 at 1310. This is the tribal gate of duration, continuity, where we learn, as always, the only thing that endures is change. The moon in gate 32 brings us an innate ability to recognize things that have lasting value. You know, things that are going to be useful for the material direction and survival of one's community, one's tribe, as well as the people who are able to make valuable contributions to maintaining the stability of tribal structure. This ensures continuity through a process of consistent change and transformation, which sounds like, you know, it wouldn't work, but it works beautifully. You know, look at the tribes around us. They're only just now starting to fall apart. And that's because of the global cycle change. But the tribal continuity has stayed because of this sort of consistent change and transformation and understanding that the only thing that endures is change. And of course, the tribe is going to continue past 2027, and these gates will still be there. So the awareness centers, we know they carry a fear, and the fear we have here is failure, because failing the tribe, that often doesn't really end very well. The moon goes into gate 50 at almost midnight, 25 minutes past midnight. And this is called the cauldron. It's the gate of values, the values of historical continuity. So we've still got that continuity because this is still tribal. This is where traditional values serve and enrich both the present and the future. And there's an instinctive awareness to protect values, to uphold structures, and to guard the laws, guaranteeing the well-being of the family, tribe. It's about putting good values into place for the next generation to work with and to take forward so that the tribe is protected in its dealings with others, so it will be preserved. There can be a fear of responsibility here, as well as a kind of misdirected sense of taking on too much responsibility that we're just not equipped to handle. And Mercury is joining Venus in gate 15 at 1453, the gate of extremes. So this gate in the G center about the love of humanity or not that we looked at already. So maybe you listen out for conversations here around the love of humanity or not, or around the extremes that some people will go to in order to find a balance, or, you know, these kinds of things. Maybe you will see stories in newspapers or hear them on the radio or in conversations around you. This is our weather for today. And thank you for joining me. That was gate 12, line 4. I'll see you tomorrow for line 5. And until then, go gently. Bye-bye.